Hi, this is Larry Hatch, and we're back again with a third video journal of the Juniper Society. And I want to start out with some topics. We've got some new topical headers, so I think we're going to start each journal with some new cultivars. And most of these can be found in the Open Registration of Cultivars registry at cultivar.org. Just click on the International Register of Ornamental Woody Plants, and you can download those free volumes with these descriptions of these new junipers. The first one I selected seemed to be fairly interesting. It's from a Polish nursery called the Kaluzinski Nursery, and that's KALUZINSCY.PL. And they have a variant of Juniper squamata blue carpet called Denfa Malachite. It's about 70 centimeters tall. And that's pretty big, and about 2 millimeters wide. So it's maybe a little bit like blue spreader. It's definitely bigger than blue carpet, apparently. Grows about 15 centimeters a year, and it's a super blue plant. It was selected at Dawes Nursery by Michael Kaluzinski in 2003. I just recently heard about this nursery, but it sounds like an interesting plant. And if you take a look at the graphics here, you can see some nice pictures of it. It's a Polish cultivar, obviously, and according to the Research Center for Cultivar Testing, it was admitted to the Polish national list with their own number and given protection rights as a breeder's plant. It has steel blue foliage, and like I say, it is fairly tall. It's almost it's 7/10 of a meter tall and 2 meters wide, and should be a very interesting plant to collect. And if you go to the OROC registers, you'll see that I have three other cultivars that they created. One is Junipers communis bagnet. You can read about it there. And Junipers ex media yellow yellow sapphire, which is a Pfitzer type juniper, very dense and golden, divergent foliage. And they also have a Juniperus horizontalis salamander, which is a bright silvery blue, heavily mottled in yellow with divergent type foliage. And that should be interesting, because when you get a juniper with a bright yellow chimera, it's nice against green, but against silvery blue, wow, that's a whole different thing altogether. The second cultivar that I want to call your attention to is a creation of Spring Meadow Nursery by Tim Wood, and as you probably know, they have a major sales outlet through provenwinners.com, so you're likely to see this juniper in some of your local nurseries. And I have a picture of it here. It's Junipers chinensis Montana Moss. That's a registered trademark. It does not look to me like a chinensis, a pure chinensis. I'm considering a Junipers ex media, or at least some hybrid, but we'll go with their name for now. And like most of their plants, they do patent them. And it is a low spreader ground cover type juniper in this beautiful blue green tone. And it has an almost Arizona cypress-like look to it from what I've seen here. Very moss-like. It's soft to touch. It's not a hostile juniper. A lot of junipers with this kind of texture would be very prickly, and this one is not. Looks like a very interesting introduction, and I'm sure with Proven Winners carrying it, we'll all get to see it or purchase it, and we'll go with that. Spring Meadow Nursery does have some other junipers too, and we probably will cover those in a future episode. The next section I want to go into is called identification, or as the header here says, identification and keys. We're going to spend a little time in each episode, each video journal, with some practical garden identification keys of junipers. It took me years to work a lot of these things out on my own, and with the help of experts and people in the literature. I had to find some weird theses and dissertations, um, including one at Cornell by Dr. John Cornman. He got a PhD in garden junipers. A lot of people don't know about John Cornman, and I had to dig out his work back in the depths of Cornell University's Bailey Hortorum. And I also found a copy of P.J. Van Melle's review of Junipers sinensis et al. And that's a very hard book to find, and it's not in the public digital domain. And I read that book cover to cover. It really teaches you a lot about the Chinese junipers and their related Asian species. Anyway, a lot of people have asked, how do you identify some of our modern weeping, prickly or acicular type junipers? And when I say acicular, that's A-C-I-C-U-L-A-R. That means they have a jointed needle, not a scale-like needle, like a common juniper, for example. It's also called subulate or jointed at the base, and they're usually in whorls of 3. So let's say you had 3 common weeping junipers that are seen in collections. Junipers rigida, the weeping form, which is correctly called Junipers rigida, variety rigida. Weeping group. The name pendula was never published before 1959, so I've renamed it Weeping Group. We also have some of the weeping common junipers, like Junipers communis, horseman's weeping. That's popular in Europe and the United States. We also have a third weeper that you see collections, is the narrow Junipers formosana. So I went to the guru of all juniper taxonomists, Dr. Robert Adams, and I have a sample of a key from his book here, keying out some of these Chinese and other Asian junipers, and this sample of the key will get you able to identify from just a leaf or two, you might want to look at more than one, these 3 weepers. Junipers formosana is distinct from the other 2 in that it has 2 white stomatal bands on the lower surface, and that's very important. You probably won't see cones on any of them, or if you do, probably mostly the rigida, because that comes in a female clone. There's both female and male weeping rigidas, by the way, so that's why I gave it the name group. So if you have 2 stomatal bands on this narrow weeping thing, it's probably a formosana. If you have 1 stomatal band on the lower surface, you've narrowed it down to rigida, variety rigida, weeping group, or one of the Junipers communises. So let's go to key, part of the key 3 here. The rigida is V-shaped in cross-section, up to 2.2 centimeters long, and almost a centimeter, or I'm sorry, almost a millimeter wide, and it has a keel and a ridge. And if you get used to looking at these, you can see that it's Y-shaped, very deeply grooved, and has a ridge or keel on it, with a very narrow green margin. If you had a horseman's weeping next to this, you would see that that is a much more flat, nearly flat leaf. It is much shorter, only 4 to 10, maybe 12 millimeters. There's a little overlap in these 2 in length, and it's really a skinnier leaf. It's really a wider leaf than the rigida, a good 1 millimeter or more wide. A lot of the rigidas are, because they're folded, can be only about half a millimeter wide. And in the case of the common junipers, weeping or not, the stomatal band is wider than the green margins. That's very, very important. On rigida, the stomatal band is narrower than the green margins. So that's a really interesting key, and I think from my experience even on young little plants in a nursery, you can use this key to separate those three out. And of course, I've got to give credit to the gentleman who wrote this key, and that's Dr. Robert Adams of Baylor University. And if you'd like to get more keys like this, and he does offer them free, believe it or not, they are available at juniper.org. And I highly recommend that you look into purchasing his book, Junipers of the World, the genus Junipers. He's actually done a lot of work on cultivated junipers, and some of his articles on those are on his website. But the book's Junipers of the World, that's the Bible. And I really highly recommend that you give that a look, because I think most people that'll go to his website will want more than just the free stuff on the website, although he is extremely generous in that area. The third topic we have in these journals is collections and sources. And I want to talk about a few juniper collections I visited, mainly in the United States, and a little bit about them. The first one I want to talk about is one of the largest public collections, probably the largest public collection of junipers in the United States. It's at the Dawes Arboretum. That's dawesarb.org. And they have well over 140 cultivars of juniper. It's hard to tell the exact number. I didn't count them because there's synonyms in there. But you say 140, that's not a lot. Well, yeah, it is. It's actually more than, it's about 10% of the juniper cultivars ever named, and probably about 20% of the ones still in the trade. So 20%, that's a pretty good number. So most tree collections don't have hundreds and hundreds of junipers like they could. And by the way, I wish maybe one of you will do that sometime. And they have 10% of everything ever named, probably the best 10% of anything that's existed. They don't have a lot of the old stuff, but they've got some amazingly rare and new cultivars in beautiful forms. And this first plate I have here is Junipers virginiana Essex Weeping, and that's a super weeper. That's better than most of the pendula stuff or Gotelli weeping things out there. And the advantage of their system is that they have a Garden Explorer, Tree Explorer, I forgot the name of it. Everybody calls it something different. Where you can find the plant by name or just browse, and it'll show you a picture of it, a little of its history and description, and plot it on the map for you. So if you have a reasonably sized tablet and you're good with a cell phone, you can actually navigate around the Arboretum with this thing and look for rare plants and find them pretty rapidly. They got a complicated road network through that Arboretum, and they're huge, massive conifer collection. It's probably the best conifer collection in the U.S. in terms of the diversity of cultivars. Something the Arnold Arboretum used to have, but no longer has, sad to say. And the second example here is one of the North Dakota State University junipers called Copper Delight. Grows well up there in the prairies, and here's an example of it. We need to grow more of the common junipers, and North Dakota State University has selected a number of them for hardiness, density, attractiveness, colors, even coning. So I recommend some of the stuff in the Prairie series or this Copper Delight. And again, it's plotted here on the maps if you want to take a look at it. Dawes Arboretum is a great place to go to look at a large range of modern and really the best, the finest junipers out there today. Our last section for today is called Oldie but Goodie, and I'm going to try to feature some old but still useful cultivars if we could get them propagated and back into the trade. This first one we have is Junipers chinensis erecta, and I'm pretty sure it's the same as erecta glauca. It was sold in the United States years ago. I happened to find a plant labeled here in my own hometown at the Plant Delights Nursery, specifically the Juniper Level Botanic Garden of Tony Avent. And you can see here the super glaucous upright juniper. It's not spiny. It's not stricta, that upright blue thing. It's not pyramidalous. It's much bluer than that. Very frosty. And if you look at the foliage up close, you can see it's a really beautiful, almost Arizona cypress-like foliage with good separation of the branchlets. Very frosty blue, upright, neat and dense, but it's slightly less formal. And it has been in the trade as erecta or erecta glauca. I'm guessing they're about the same thing. I'm not sure. It has a very tiny little scale-like leaf, so it reminds me of the old Fortunii or Fortunii glauca cultivar of chinensis, but that was not as blue, at least from the plants that exist. I was roaming old cemeteries, as I often do, because you find some really spectacular plants there. And this is an old cemetery in Charlotte. If you want to track it down, ask me in the comments and I'll provide the name. And I said, wow, this is exactly like Tony Avent's erecta. And since I knew that erecta glauca was in the trade in North Carolina, I should say in the southeast at the time this was probably planted, I'm pretty sure it's the same thing. It doesn't look as blue in this picture because it was kind of a shady situation, but believe me, this plant is just as silvery blue as the other material. And look at how dense and tufty it is. Again, it looks a little like pyramidalus and stricta from a distance. That's why I almost didn't look at it. But wow, it's just got super small, very, very blue leaves. And it's a great plant. Again, I don't know anybody growing it. I have to say right away, it's not the same as Juniper scapulorum erecta glauca or Chamaecyparis lawsoniana erecta glauca. This is a small-leaved Chinese juniper for certain. And like I say, it's a really good item. Really, really good item. So hopefully somebody can bring that back, because I think it's something we've lost. And it's way more blue than, let's say, the Iowa stuff or the obelisk stuff. And like I say, it's not a prickly juniper. It's very compatible with everything today. So thanks for watching. If you like the Juniper Society, please subscribe, put in comments, like it. We really need some motivation for this, because I've done a lot of videos in the past and hardly anybody's looked at them, so I kind of stopped. But I'm starting to get some buzz on this juniper stuff, so please give me some encouragement and give us a subscription, if you will. There's no monetizing here. There's no money to be made. I just need to justify my time, that enough people are looking at it, that it's worth spending the hundreds and hundreds of hours that I do on my videos. So thank you, and please comment. I want people to feel free to share, ask questions, and reward those of you who came all the way to the end. I'm going to ask a question because I don't know the answer, and it's about two popular junipers. One is Junipers sea green, and the other is Junipers sex media mint julep from Monrovia. Is sea green and mint julep the same thing? I don't know. I used to know how to tell them apart, but now the plants are all mixed up. Sea green and mint julep to me look exactly the same. This upright, bright, yet rich green color with cones sometimes, big cones. And they can get as tall as 5 feet tall. I used to have them separated out, but all of those traits and stuff that I used to know don't hold up today in all the plants I've seen. I'm sure they're confused and mislabeled. Some people say they never were different to begin with. So if you know examples, documented examples of sea green and mint julep preferably sourced or traceable to Monrovia, the originator, and can sort the two out. Please leave some comments on that, and that'll benefit all of us. Thank you.